This week, I'm going to tell you why I chose Slovenia. Can you hear me? This week, I'm going to tell you why I chose Slovenia. Did you start it? So, the first reason is that I wanted a smaller city. My decision came down to Budapest in Hungary and Ljubljana here in Slovenia. But Budapest is a bit too big for me. It's also overrun with tourists. And so I wanted a place that was a little smaller, not too small, but somewhere where I didn't feel like I would get lost in the city. So that's the first reason why I chose Ljubljana. So the second point is that I wanted a city that wasn't as touristy. Like I mentioned, I was between Budapest and Ljubljana, but Budapest was a bit too big for me. It's also, I think it has around 30 million tourists a year. And although Ljubljana is growing in the tourist world, it's definitely not as big as a place like Budapest. I think of all the European capital cities that I know, Ljubljana is much more chill and more of a hidden gem, if you will. The term gets tossed around a lot, but I think with Ljubljana, it has to be true. Point number 3, I wanted a more affordable city. Coming from the United States, it's obviously much more expensive than Slovenia. And specifically, I came from Dallas, Texas. Dallas is about double the price of Ljubljana. And I know Ljubljana is more expensive for Slovenia. So I wanted a more affordable city. I didn't look at cities like Copenhagen or Zurich because I knew the prices were crazy. So I wanted to move to a place that was a little bit more friendly on my wallet. Okay, I want to give a shout out to Katie for buying me a coffee via my link below, buy me a coffee. Cheers, Katie. I also want to give a shout out to my niece, Madeline, for making me this bracelet for Christmas. Thank you, Madeline, I love you. Point number 5, I wanted a Roman Catholic country. As a Roman Catholic myself, it's very important for me to find a spot where there's going to be a ton of Roman Catholic churches. And here in Slovenia, most of the population is Catholic. I think it's about 75%. But yeah, so I wanted to find a Catholic country. I've been really enjoying going to the Franciscan church here in the center of the city, the big pink church at Prešeren Square, right in the center. I'll show you a picture of the inside. It's pretty amazing. But so that's a really important thing that's close to my heart, and that was a big decision for me. And why I actually crossed off some countries from my list was because of the religious aspect. Point number 6. So when I visited Ljubljana in the fall of 2023. Hey, just want to pop in real quick. Please hit the like button below, subscribe, turn on notification bell, and tune in every Sunday for a new video. Thanks, see ya. I fell in love with the cafe culture along the river. As you visit the city and you walk the main area, you're gonna obviously see the river running through the city, but you're also gonna see the cafes lining the river full of people. It's such an amazing vibe by the river, and especially on the warm days, it's extra nice. There you can enjoy a coffee for 2 or 3 hours, have a nice beer with a friend, and just share some laughs and some good stories. But when I visited, I really pictured myself being in an area like this, reading a book, chatting with a friend, and I really fell in love with the river. Growing up, I was a big outdoorsman, and rivers and bodies of water have always been something that really inspire me and make me feel at home. And so when I visited Ljubljana in the fall of 2023, the center surrounding the cafe culture surrounding the center was just something that I really fell in love with. Point number 6. Point number 6. I wanted a traditional environment. So moving across the world, I didn't want to end up in the same environment that I was coming from. And countries like the UK, for example, are eerily similar to the US. So I didn't want to move across the world and find myself in the same environment. So that's why I didn't look at like the Western countries of Europe, and I chose something more central in Slovenia. But you know, on the nice days here and on the weekends especially, you can go to Tivoli Park here in Ljubljana, and you'll see families just all over the park, children running around, and it's just such a nice vibe. I think in some of the Western countries and in parts of the US, the family tradition and that part of society is kind of changing. And so you just don't get that traditional side anymore. And that's something I was really looking for and valuing. And I do believe that's here in Slovenia. You might say that it's less than it used to be, but from my opinion, it's way more than I've ever seen. And so, yeah, I really wanted a place that had traditional family values, and that's another reason I chose Slovenia. Point 7. I wanted a country that's centrally located. Slovenia is located between Austria, Hungary, Italy, and Croatia, right here in Central Europe. And from Slovenia, or Ljubljana, where I'm stationed, or where I'm located, you can travel to Venice, you can travel to Vienna, or Zagreb in just a short trip. And so I wanted a place that's centrally located. Because I love to travel, this is actually perfect for me. And as many of you know, you can go anywhere in Europe via train, via bus, via plane, or car. And so that's exactly what I wanted, and I think that's exactly what I got here in Slovenia, because I can travel anywhere and everything's so close. So it's actually perfect for me. But yeah, that is the sedum point. Point awesome. I love the topography of Slovenia. In Slovenia, you have the sea, you have the Alps, you have lakes, and you have a karst topography, so you have caves. I visited some of those in my time here. Growing up, I really love the outdoors. I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about the river. I really love the outdoors, and here in Slovenia, I have the outdoors everywhere. I can visit the mountains, I can go to the caves, the rivers, the lakes. I can do it all, but that's one reason why I love Slovenia and why I chose Slovenia is because of the outdoors. I really do love everything it has to offer because it literally has everything. So Slovenia is centrally located, but it's also centrally located in terms of geography because all the topography you can get, again, the seas, the mountains, the lakes, and the caves. So you got it all here in Slovenia. Debate. Point 8. I wanted a country with a strong culture. Slovenia is a country of only 2 million people, and they actually have a very rich culture. I think it's because it's so small. People are really defensive of the language, of the food, and then the music as well. I actually have really enjoyed the food here. As you've seen in the past, I've tried some traditional dishes like potica, strukli, gibanica, jota, and some other things as well, klobasa. But I really enjoy the Slovenian culture, and I wanted to move to a European country that really had a strong culture. I think a lot of the Western European countries have really lost that culture just due to globalization. As more, people from different countries come in, you kind of have a watered down version of the true culture. And I think that's kind of how America is because it's so diverse and, obviously it's a much younger country. You don't have as much, I guess, true identity. But I wanted to move to a European city that was rich in history and culture. And so that is another reason why I chose Slovenia. Point 10. In the fall of 2017, I visited Copenhagen, Denmark, and Prague in Czechia, and I fell in love with the culture. I returned from that trip and I traced the same 5 words in my journal. For months, I traced the words, "I will live in Europe," in my journal, and here I am, right? I'm finally living here, but I got to a point last year, was it last year? No, it was 2 years ago, 2023, where I just decided I want a little bit more out of my life. So I was living and working in Dallas, Texas, and as an accountant, and I had been working for a couple years, and I just decided that I wanted more in my life. I didn't want this dream of mine of moving to Europe to be a question mark in the future. And so I decided it was the time for me to move, and yeah. That's it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Did you start it? This week, I'm going to tell you why I chose Slovenia. Just a candid. Did you get the point number? Point number chased.